Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 22nd, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. You got BC, Washington, Oregon. Check out our system over top of us as we speak. And if you were out and about yesterday, especially across the southern Puget Sound, you probably heard some of that thunder out there. Had some interesting convergence associated with the moisture aloft with this system that spawned those strikes. Mainly east of the Cascades today, there is a thunderstorm threat. But what everybody wants to talk about now is the cold air, and you can see it stirring here on the northern portion of Alaska down towards Yukon here. It's going to start its trek down the west coast of BC here shortly and possibly carve out a trough here across Pacific Northwest, bringing some intense mountain snowfalls here and even some snowfall to some higher hills around some of the Puget Sound here as well, and some very cold temperatures across the region if this lines up just perfectly. So we'll take a look at what the latest weather models have to say on that. National Weather Service Spokane fully talking about it now, and you can see the blue line there carving out a couple scenarios and the purple or pink line there as well. And you can kind of see they're showing that most of the weather models are showing up with this blue line, but we'll see what they say here in a moment. Nice graphic from the National Weather Service Spokane, and take a look at some of these maximum temperatures. This is Pendleton, or actually this is Pocatello, Idaho here, and you can see some of these temperatures here dropping off by a full 30 degrees or more from this week, this weekend Sunday on in through mid and later portions this week towards next weekend. Temperatures are going to be plummeting. And look at some of these minimum temperatures out here. Island Park 8, Stanley 3 degrees, Sun Valley down to 15 here, and Montana is going to be extremely cold. Eastern Washington, some of the higher terrain as well. There's freezing temperatures possibly coming for Western Washington and Western Oregon. Southwest BC is also, and we'll take a look at those details as we go. Now we got a gale watch up here for the Strait of Juan de Fuca here, and this is for a Monday afternoon through Monday evening. Some gusts to 35 knots are possible. If we take a look at the NAM 3KM, we'll scroll ahead through today, and you can see some gusty winds on the east slopes of the Cascades through this evening, but then you'll see this wind pick up as we go through tomorrow afternoon and evening. You can see that impacting maybe western portions of Whidbey Island. You can see some gusty winds down the east slopes of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon. Some of these could be potentially strong here as well. You could get some gusts, looks like up towards 50 miles per hour with that, and this is in advance of that next system here. And if we scroll out far enough on the NAM, you can actually even see the little low pressure system associated right there, and some gusty winds coming down the coastline, some westerlies, and that colder air starts to arrive here and slams into our mountains and really starts to kick off some very heavy snowfall potentially. This is the thunderstorm outlook with the initial system here today. This is eastern Oregon. Boise would be included in that, Pocatello, Butte, Montana as well, and that's with the system today. And if you want a nice affordable home weather station to record all this crazy weather we get here across the Pacific Northwest, click on that link down below to save 10% off. Highly recommend this very fun weather station. Now, this is what we've been going over the last few days here. We're starting to get some model agreement, but there's still uncertainty in the exact track here because it's such a fine line of getting the coldest air across some of the Cascades and into some of the coastal ranges here. And it depends on how much snowfall you're going to be able to spawn across the Cascades as well. But right now we're looking at the GFS. This was last night's run versus itself yesterday afternoon's run. So we put it into motion. You can clearly see the colder air moving down the coastline here. And you can see last night's run pretty darn similar here on the ensembles, maybe a little, just a hair off to the east here, but still a nice trajectory for some heavy mountain snows across Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia to be getting the action as well, and some very cold air making its way down into the region. And if we continue on, you can kind of see this trough hanging out here near the Pacific Northwest as we go on in through next week, and big ridge here steering some north and northeast flow down across the area. Very cold setup here for the Pacific Northwest. This is looking at the GFS. This is last night's run, total snow 10-to-1 ratio. What kind of snowfall would that bring? So you can see it starts as we go through the day Monday for a lot of British Columbia here, but the best moisture fetch is going to be really for the Cascades of Washington and Oregon as this cold air comes off the continent here and brings some very heavy amounts back across Washington State. Some pretty impressive amounts across the Cascades of Oregon for an early season event. Also, you can see Yellowstone getting hammered. A lot of the higher terrain there for Nevada. Even the Sierra Nevada is going to get some snow if this unfolds. And you can see the Rocky Mountains of BC and Alberta. So yeah, very cold system here dropping down across the area. And then maybe another shot of a secondary system coming through the later portion next week, adding a little bit of additional snowfall. It would be a very chilly system as well. And you can kind of see that moving down across the Intermountain West there. Now looking at the European here, the European ensemble mean of all 50 ensemble members last night versus itself yesterday afternoon's run. Put it into motion. There comes the cold air down the coastline. You kind of look for any little differences here. Pretty similar though. And then we drop drop down here, and it shows maybe it backed off a little bit on just how vigorous this upper level low is on the ensembles, but still a nice trajectory for mountain snowfall and heavy mountain snowfall and very cold air mass moving across the Pacific Northwest. But something to watch, because any kind of change in this trajectory can really limit the amount of snowfall we're going to get across some of this area. And there's also going to be, some fairly decent rain falling across some of the lower elevations. We'll look at that in some detail as we go as well. This is the ensemble mean of the European as of last night. Put it into motion. You can see the snow starting across British Columbia. Big amounts across the Washington and Oregon Cascades, potentially Olympic Mountains with a nice shot of snow here as well. The Rocky Mountains, Yellowstone, some of the Bitterroots of Idaho, the Blue Mountains, Northeast Washington, getting some nice snowfall. And you can't even rule out some snowfall for places like Spokane here as well. And I'll show you the ensembles for Spokane and some of the mountain areas here in a moment. This is looking at the Canadian as well. Might as well. Let's take a look at that. And you can see this is yesterday afternoons versus yesterday mornings. So again, 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. Watching that cold air make its trek down BC here. And you can see it carves out that trough here across Pacific Northwest. And you can see that it actually trended more cold. That's what the models were doing yesterday. They were showing up a bit colder yesterday and backed off a hair last night, as I showed you here. So still interesting scenario unfolding for us. Now we can look at the NAM 12 km as well, and you can kind of see it cuts off its data here as you go through northern BC, but we can still get that information. This is 500 millibars. This is a system where it's associated with us right now. And then you can see that gradient tighten here, and then that trough dig down across the area. And it also backed off a little bit here as of this morning's run versus yesterday afternoon, but would still bring plentiful snowfall and a very chilly air mass here across the Pacific Northwest. But we got to watch for those models backing off at the last second. It can still happen. Now looking at the European at 500 millibar temperatures, just want to give you a visual representation of this cold air moving down the coastline here. And you can kind of see this bowling ball just cut right over us here. So you can imagine if this backs up a little bit, just the amount of cold air would be dramatically reduced. It would be digging out over the water here in the Pacific Northwest, and how much moisture it would be able to pick back up and bring back into the mountains there. And then you can see the European kind of with that secondary shot there for yesterday afternoon, bringing some additional cold air and maybe another weak system as we go through the end of the next week coming up. Now taking a look at Stampede Pass, you can see all the ensembles are in agreement. There's going to be some snowfall here for the Cascades on last night's European run, and you can see the ensemble mean right around 6-7 inches here. So nice snowfall incoming for a lot of the mountain areas. Snoqualmie Pass, check it out, getting up towards 9-10 inches here. Some of the ensemble members are even higher. Mount Baker ski area as well. Check it out. The control was over 10 inches. This is Whistler. Not quite as much moisture up there, but it's going to be quite cold here. So this should be, nice sticking snowfall here. Early season stuff for Whistler. This is Seattle-Tacoma cross section. So again, this is the surface here. You're looking at about 2,500 feet there. There's 5,000 feet. The top of this diagram here is at 10,000 feet. So you can clearly see this very cold air mass getting down across the Pacific Northwest here, potentially even bringing some freezing conditions to some of the Puget Sound and the Willamette Valley into the lower elevations. Now looking at Spokane, you can see this very cold air mass aloft again here, but look at the surface. You can see these overnight lows dropping below freezing, afternoon highs going above and back and forth. You can see the diurnal warming here, but the overnight lows definitely going to get below freezing here if the weather models are correct at this point. Now we're looking at the European on the left versus the GFS on the right. We've come to some model agreement on this next system rolling in here, and you can clearly see it coming in on both models here. The cold air really sagging south across British Columbia here. Atmospheric river feature moving in with this. Not an exceptional one, and it's going to be cut off quite quickly here, but then it moves to the south here, and you can kind of see both models cutting off that precipitation from north to south as the last day or two. The European has been trending colder along with the GFS here and pushing that moisture down across the region to the southeast. And then you can see a secondary system trying to come in here at the end of the run as well. So we'll watch that over the next few days also. That would be another chilly upper level low. This is looking at the European on the left versus GFS on the right, total precipitation in inches. And keep in mind here that a lot of this, once we get to this point, is going to be snowfall for the higher terrain, the Cascades. But Seattle looking at like 0.6 of an inch, maybe Portland something similar. Some amounts over an inch here for a lot of the coastal ranges as well. And then that snow level is going to crash down here and the precipitation will come to an end. And this is all the way out towards Friday night here. So impressive amounts here. Big time snowfall totals coming for some of the Cascades, especially the higher elevations. Now let's take a look at the daily 2-meter max temperature. This would be for today, 61 for Seattle, 65 for Portland. Put it into motion, and tomorrow you can see a little bit of a cool down. But watch Tuesday, 51 for a high for Seattle. By the time we get towards Wednesday, we might not be getting out of the 40s here for some of the central Puget Sound. Thursday, still chilly here across the area. Some areas of eastern Washington and Oregon might not be getting out of the 30s here as we get on in towards later portions of the week coming up. So yeah, I have not turned on my heat this year yet, but I think that is definitely coming to an end as we go through this upcoming week. This is the daily 2-meter min temperatures. So if we take a look at this, check out some of these overnight lows. By the time we get into the mid and later portions of next week, there could be some freezing locations across western Washington, maybe even down towards the Willamette Valley. And look at eastern Washington, Oregon. You're getting in the ice box. There's some teens coming, and there's some teens coming from the mountains almost certainly across a lot of Washington and Oregon here as well. So very cold air mass moving across the area. We'll look at some temperature graphs here in a moment as well. Now this is looking at 1.33 kilometer resolution. So the best feature of this model is that you can see just the intricate terrain details that this model is able to pick up. You can see Mount Rainier right there. There's North Bend, the Snoqualmie Pass would be here. Stevens Pass would be there. You can see the Olympic Mountains and the terrain features as well. So if we scroll through here, I'm just going to plow ahead here, and you can see the snow incoming, and you can really see how it's going to be across the higher terrain. But if you look closely, look at that Tiger Mountain getting some snowfall, maybe a few inches. Mount Constitution on the San Juans actually showing up a little bit of snowfall here as well. Vancouver Island, some of the higher terrain here. And look at down across southwest Washington, Capitol Hill Forest down there, just off to the southwest of Olympia near Highway 12, showing a little bit of snowfall on that hilltop as well. So this really is an amazing model here where it shows such intricate terrain features here, and you can see some of the higher terrain of the Cascades really picking up some big snowfall amounts. And by the time we get some clearing as we go through mid and later week, we're going to see a nice snowfall coating here on the Olympic Mountains. Now looking at 2-meter temperature anomaly, European on the left versus GFS on the right, and this is just the ensemble mean here. I didn't cherry pick anything here, but look at this cold air mass. And again, this is the average of all the ensemble members here. This is not cherry picked. You can see the change in temperatures coming here. This is 2-meter temperature anomaly again here. So some places in Montana on the GFS over 30 degrees below normal for this time of year. The European very cold out there as well, and across much of the Pacific Northwest, even down towards California and northern portions of Nevada. So very intensely cold air here for this time of year coming in across the region, unless something dramatically changes in the models. Now, this is probability of 2-meter min temperature. I did kind of cherry pick this one, but this is still an ensemble average here, and this is 32 degrees or below. And you can see some of that probability coming for the Willamette Valley in western Washington. Much higher probabilities here as you go across the mountains, and eastern Washington and eastern Oregon. So yeah, definitely cold air incoming. Now taking a look at Spokane here, you can see all 50 ensemble members from the European model, and you can clearly see the drop in temperatures coming as we go through this early portion of this week. You can see Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the drop down to some of these lower temperatures incoming. And yeah, look at this. Some of these teens out here for Spokane, you can see pretty good agreement between the control and the ensemble mean here. So our confidence is definitely improving with the very cold air mass moving over the area. This is Great Falls, Montana. Check this out. You can just see this here. This is 6-hour min temperature here, but you can clearly see that drop in the temperature. Some of these getting into the single digits for portions of Montana incoming here. And then we get that uncertainty through the later portion of the forecast. Boise, this is looking pretty chilly for you guys too. You can see some of these overnight lows down into the 20s by the time you get towards Thursday morning, Friday morning. Some very chilly air headed your way as well. You can actually see a couple ensemble ones keeping things quite warm there across the area, but the vast majority of them show this cold air mass getting down towards Boise. Helena, Montana Regional Airport, very chilly temperatures. A lot of single digits showing up here as we go through Thursday morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning with this extremely cold air mass setting up shop. This is Seattle, Tacoma, and you can see some of these overnight lows getting down below freezing, and some of the rural and outlying areas are going to be below freezing, no doubt, as well as we head towards the end portion of this week here. So we're going to have to watch out for some black ice and some frost out there and try to protect your sensitive plants. Portland International, not showing too many temperatures below freezing here, but you can definitely see the cool off here as we go through the mid and end of this week coming up. Crystal Mountain, I mean, wow. A lot of single digits showing up here. If you're going skiing on Mount Rainier, early season stuff, I don't know, you might have to hike up. I don't know when the ski lifts start exactly here, but you might get some decent skiing or snowboarding opportunities here if you are so inclined. Now, taking a look at Spokane International, actually showing some snowfall coming. Look at the control run, over 4 inches. The ensemble mean about 2. This is probably overdoing how much would actually accumulate here, but you can't rule out some accumulation all the way down for the airport of Spokane with this very chilly air mass. And you can see when this would start late Tuesday night, potentially into Wednesday morning. Now, this is looking at Bellingham. It actually shows a little bit showing up here, but the ground is still very warm at this time of year. We're not expecting sea level snowfall right now. This calculation here is at 170 feet. So it's kind of interesting looking, and you can't rule out some flakes if this thing lines up just perfectly overnight hours. Some of the higher hills around the Puget Sound, it's possible you could see some flakes here, but we're not expecting accumulating snowfall. This is Seattle Tacoma. Look at some of the ensemble. A couple of the ensembles actually showed over 2 inches for Seattle. It would be the earliest snowfall ever recorded at SeaTac. Highly unlikely that this would happen. However, I mean, the very low chance that you would even see any mixed rain or snow out of this, but you can't completely rule it out if it lines up just perfectly. Again, if some very cold air gets out of loft, maybe a little bit colder than what's modeled, and it happens during the overnight hours, you might see some flakes on the highest hills across the Puget Sound. And looking at the Climate Prediction Center here, let's just jump to this one. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. You can see the below average signal here, and also watch this interesting signal here across the west. As this trough moves through, it would dry out behind it. Get this cold air mass over us, and we wouldn't be bringing any Pacific storm systems that we might normally be getting at this time of year. It's kind of an interesting signal there, but take that with a grain of salt right now. So anyway, yeah, we'll be watching the models again today. I have to work one more day again, and then I'll probably do another video probably tomorrow morning, so there probably won't be another video coming out today. But yeah, the cold air, it's up there. You can see it. It's stirring around, and it's going to be starting its trek here shortly down the coast. Be watching the model runs today. Check me out on Twitter, and we can look for any recent updates here. But yeah, pretty nice early season cold shot looks likely here for much of the Pacific Northwest. So anyway, if you guys haven't yet, check out the California Weather Watch channel. Click like and subscribe. Help the channel out. All my members that support this page, you guys make this page possible. Be doing some more coffee mug giveaways. I just sent one out yesterday, so yeah, looking forward to that stuff. Probably doing a weather station giveaway here shortly as well. So anyway, hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.